Hi, my name is Jim Woll. I'm one of the executives in residence here at CATS. I've been at CATS for 6 years and I've spent a lot of that time working individually with students to help them prepare for interviews. So I'd like to share a few interview tips with you today. Most interviews have 3 main sections, so focus your preparation on these areas. First, be ready to answer the question, tell me about yourself, or walk me through your resume. Your answer here should be about 2 minutes long. I recommend typing this out word for word. In your preparation, working to make sure that you can memorize and repeat this answer. Make sure to time your answer in your prep session so that you know that it's roughly 2 minutes long. Your answer should be in chronological order, meaning you should start with your undergraduate degree and finish by talking about your experience at CATS. In between, discuss your professional experience job by job. Focus on your responsibilities and accomplishments in each job. Be sure to share some data. For instance, I was part of a department of 10 people, or I worked on a 3-month project with people from 4 other offices. Our project budget was $200,000, and at the end of the project, we presented our results to the leadership team in a 2-hour meeting. Or something like I was responsible for 25 customers that represented about $1 million in annual sales for the company. Explaining your experience using common business metrics allows the interview to visualize you and their organization, even if your experience is in a different industry. Also, if you've changed jobs in your career, talk briefly about your reasons for switching jobs. When you talk about your experience at CATS near the end of your answer, the message you're trying to convey is that things at CATS are working out as you planned, that you're developing the skills that you hope to, and that you're a fully engaged member of the CATS community. You should mention any case competitions, consulting field projects, or other team and experience-based activities that you've participated in at CATS. And finally, I recommend that students close their answer to the tell me about yourself question by reiterating their interest in the job that they're interviewing for, by closing with something like, this role at Amazon would be a great opportunity for me, and I'm anxious to learn more today. The second section of the interview is usually what are known as behavioral questions, typically asked in the form of, tell me about a time when. In many cases, the subjects for these questions come right from the job description for the position that you're interviewing for. Look for the section titled Required Qualifications or Preferred Experience. Usually there's a list of skills or experience that candidates should have, like the ability to work under tight time deadlines or experience working with large data sets. I recommend preparing an example or 2 for each item in the job description. These examples should be actual stories about your experience. The examples should contain names, numbers, and as many specifics about the situation as possible. In answering these behavioral questions, share the stories using what's called the CAR format. You describe the challenge you faced, the action you took, and the result that you got. Make sure your stories are about actual experiences that you had. You want to avoid answering behavioral questions with philosophies. For instance, you should describe an actual experience dealing with a difficult coworker, not how you would deal with a difficult coworker. And finally, your answers to behavioral questions should be relatively short, between a minute and a minute and a half each. The interviewer most likely has a number of questions to ask, and you want to make sure that they get through all their questions during the interview. I'd also recommend timing your stories and your preparation. There's no way you're going to be able to predict in advance all the behavioral questions, but by using the job description as your guide, you should be able to prepare in advance for many of the likely questions. If you get a behavioral question that you haven't prepared a story for, quickly think back through your work experience and your experience at CATS, pick a situation and share it with the interviewer using the CAR format. Finally, I'd recommend that your stories come from both your professional experience and your experience at CATS. If you have significant work experience, most of your stories can come from your work experience, but you should include at least some examples from CATS. If you have less work experience, more of your examples should come from CATS. The final part of most interviews is where you have a chance to ask questions about the company and the position that you're interviewing for. You should prepare a list of written questions, and when you get to this point in an interview, pull the questions out so that the interviewer can see that you've prepared the questions in advance. When thinking about the questions that you should be asking, they should really focus on high-level strategic questions about the company and the role. You shouldn't ask questions about things like dress code, working hours, parking, or vacation policy. You'll need this information, but not in a first interview, and there'll be plenty of time in the hiring process to learn about these things. The kinds of questions you should focus on are things like, what are the biggest challenges the company or the department's facing, and what parts of the company's business are performing the best and which parts are struggling. If you're interviewing with a public company as part of your preparation, you should read and be familiar with the company's latest quarterly earnings release. That'll talk about their sales and profit growth in the most recent 3-month period. You should also be familiar with their mission statement and the business units or divisions that the company is organized into. You can find these in the company's annual shareholders reports. Finally, you should know how their stock price has performed over the last 3 months, the last year, and the last 5 years. Your interview experiences may not follow this outline exactly, but if you're prepared for these 3 key areas, the tell me about yourself question, the behavioral questions, and your questions about the company, you'll be in a good position to do well in any interview.